I'm trying to build the phrase middle-aged child because I think it makes me feel better about being a middle-aged man.
Getting the goss here. Let me sip my tea.
Is it nipple tassels?
For my dad.
Welcome to the next episode of Yarn Library with me, Adam Cleveley.
And me. Oh.
One day you'll remember who you are. You'll remember who you are, Georgia.
I just thought you say it so, like, breezy. And then I just have this brief moment. I go, it's like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
My name is Georgia at Tulipel on Instagram.
It's like when I was in Munich and I was in the German class and everyone would
in Munich, when you were in Munich.
Oh yeah, didn't I tell you, darling?
Your gap year in Munich.
They went around the room to explain who everyone was, and I literally went back to my GCSE German. Ich heiße Adam. Ich wohne in Cambridge in the north of London. Right. Well, we're meant to talk about Game of War. I don't really feel like talking much about Game of War this week.
Really? I feel that we have a unwritten contractual agreement or arrangement that we will discuss Game of War. So I do want to discuss Game of War because I do think there were some interesting things.
I want to discharge that part of our contractual agreement with our many thousands of listeners.
This is true. This is true.
They will hold
Are
us
you
to
really
account.
that, like, not... Is it really grating on you at this point?
I feel a bit upset by it. I can't quite put my finger on exactly where it's losing me. I also find like it's something I'd really love to be knitting along to, and instead I'm also taking furious amounts of notes.
That is true.
I'd really love to just try and enjoy it one week, but instead I'm taking notes because I daren't get a word wrong when I'm taking down a quote.
No, I know what you mean.
And because it was late last night, I got right up to the television. I was right in front of the TV and the notepad. The kid's like, what are you doing? I have to focus on all the details.
Yeah, I get to knit in the adverts. And then sometimes the adverts are interesting, so I've got to write.
In the adverts, all I'm trying to do is reply to all of the people on WhatsApp who are messaging me, telling me what they thought of the last 10 minutes.
No, I gave my phone to Dima last night because I posted a video for the first time in ages. And I was, getting trigger happy going, oh, how's it doing? How's it doing? And... because that's what I do now, apparently. Mm-hmm. What? I gave my phone to my husband and just said, can you just keep my phone for a bit, please? And then I got to kind of partially enjoy the episode.
Well, that's
partially.
Nice. Lucky for some.
Yes.
Obviously, we're going to talk about Game of War. We're going to include spoilers. If you weren't aware, this is about to spoil everything for you.
The spoiler library.
The spoiler library, as we now know. It's interesting. Some people internationally have written in and said they don't get to watch the show and they enjoy being able to be caught up on it. So nice. I feel like we can do that bit of service.
Yes, that I think is important because if we just suddenly stop talking about it.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm going to need to go off on some big old tangents here because there are some other things that I feel very strongly about.
People also seem to like the tangents.
How very convenient that neither of us can stay focused. Oh my God, Georgia, we haven't written an agenda today.
I did think that, and I thought, actually, I know that we could just, like, what do people say, raw dog it, but I don't really want to. So should we at least performatively just write, like, a small agenda, like Game of War.
Game of
First task.
Yeah.
Game of War.
Second task.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like a lovely idea.
Because also we've got fewer contestants now.
We have. So it's easier to talk through.
Yeah, exactly. Right, Game of War first. Game of War, that's the second one.
Have you got that all right? Game of War 1, then Game of War 2.
I am in the second percentile for my working memory. It's not a good place to be.
Let's jump into it, shall we?
Okay.
Because we've got our agenda now. It's all sorted.
Oh, should we remember to do our little advert break as well?
Let's remember to do an advert break. Do you know what I also want to do? I want to encourage anyone that's trying to do some Christmas knitting last minute. I've got some positive messages.
I would love to talk a little bit about that because I've just cast on a little gift knit.
Amazing.
It's not your hat, I'm sorry.
It's fair enough.
But it does actually pose some interesting questions because I think when I was casting on, I thought, I wonder what Adam's opinion on this will be.
Is it nipple tassels?
For my dad.
Oh, there's no judgment here.
He would. It's probably really has.
Game of War this week was Statement Week. And
I thought it was Lace Week. Did they say Statement Week last week?
They absolutely called it Statement Week because I wrote Statement Week in my book and underlined it. So they must have called it Statement Week. This was episode 6. There are 5 people left in the game at this point. Simon, Holger, Lydia, Elsa and Isaac. And the first task they had to do was knit statement jewellery. They had 10 hours to do this and they were told they had to knit, or crochet I believe it was, well, all the other techniques that we're going to come on to, something that was bold, exciting, original, and the component parts, there had to be a necklace and a cuff or bracelet. The two items had to work together, and the contestants got to choose the materials themselves. And that's, I think, was really interesting, because getting to choose the materials, I mean, on the one hand, it's cool that they got to do that. I mean, obviously then this Game of Wool, which we know that they were filming on a weekly basis, presumably actually the time in between episodes, they are scouring supplies trying to find the perfect XYZ, the materials in this case, for what they wanted to do. But so, yeah, this is all about statement jewellery. Not something I'm massively familiar with. I don't wear a lot of statement jewellery.
I've just realised now that we've started that my intention after watching the episode last night was that I was going to wear a statement necklace, and then I didn't. So I'm quite minimal in my jewellery situation, all kinds of interesting reasons for that. But my mum, actually, she trained as a jeweller in jewellery, metalwork, 3D design at art school. And my parents had me during their degree when they were about 30. I think I've told you this before. And so I really grew up around a lot of really amazing jewellery, and a lot of my mum's friends were jewellers. And after my mum had, he's getting the nipple tassel yarn.
Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you. Keep talking.
Just needs to play with something. Sorry, now I'm distracted. I'm going to go and take a medication. I don't know, Adam, I talked about my mother and then you reached for your nipple tassel yarn.
No comment. I'm just going to make a piece of statement jewellery whilst we're recording.
I see.
Look, here we go. Here is my piece of statement jewellery. Does this work for you? Is that statement jewellery? You're going to need to describe this for anyone that's not watching on YouTube.
We're able to see it. So we've got this blue furry. Is that brushed alpaca or is it mohair?
No, this is some sort of. There's a fairly healthy chunk of artificial fibre in this, I'm afraid.
So brushed acrylic,
viscose,
brushed viscose of some description with some silvery, some silvery sparkle. And Adam has fashioned it, having taken a length of the yarn, has threaded it through the cake, and is now wearing the cake as a pendant.
Yeah, that's my statement jewellery. I feel like you do have a statement necklace on, Georgia, because you're wearing a Sophie scarf.
Yes.
And that is a statement
contrasting with my lime green
sorts.
jumper. Or my it's not lime, like a mint green.
It's statement week. I've got my statement jewellery on. It is less impressive, but it took 2 minutes, not 10 hours.
My brother does this. Sometimes when I'm telling a story, he'll do something really distracting.
I'm really sorry.
It's all right.
I've really put you off. Do you want me to take this off?
Sorry, I said that too seriously.
Are you going to look at my sparkly chest?
I might do. It's like a mirror ball.
Yeah, all of my glitter.
We'll try. The
tassels are over
Maybe
there.
If I
want some matching ones,
then we'll even out. It's fine. I'm gonna put it in a little bow. Okay, so my mother.
Yes.
My mother trained as a jeweller. Yeah, so I very much grew up around jewellery. Much to her dismay, though, I seem to have fairly early on had quite strong aversions to metals and just really didn't like the smell of them or the colour of them. My dad also was a sculptor with a lot of casting and things like that. So just this, I don't know, the sound, the smell of metal. And so I just didn't really like jewellery very much. And I found it distracting and difficult to wear, which probably makes a lot of sense about my sort of neurodiverse brain in hindsight. But alas, I do have the odd piece of jewellery, but it tends to be big statement things that are really bright or fun colours. And then I have my wedding ring, which is a lovely separate craft story. I first saw a version of this ring when I was about 10 or 11 years old at a contemporary jeweller that I was, went in to look at with my mum. I kind of logged it in my brain and had meant to buy one for myself, but then never did. And then when I got married, I started looking at all this, these different rings and different engagement rings. And I basically couldn't imagine having any other ring than this ring that I'd fixated on since I was 10 years old. We went and met with Miri, who's the designer, and I had a version of that ring made, but then with stones in it. And then it's got pink and yellow because it's me and Dima, because we have pink and yellow things, which was originally our Le Creuset mugs. This is the only thing that I really wear, and I struggle to wear any more than that. So I'm not really a jewellery person, but I have a lot of context for jewellery because of my mum.
I do love jewellery. It's interesting. My mum wears very big. She likes big, bold, chunky things. Mm-hmm. Things that I guess on other people you would absolutely call them out as statements, but I think on my mum they just look natural because that's what she always wears.
Yeah.
But I love jewelry. I love shiny, sparkly things.
Is she like a Prue Leith kind of statement jewelry kind of person?
Yeah, I guess that's more where she's at. Yeah, it was a fascinating task, I think, because knitting or crafting or crocheting jewelry is a challenging thing to do. It's not something that most people would have done, but also, unlike so many of the tasks they've been set, it is quite readily accessible and useful for people in terms of, like, if you want to make something. I feel like making a necklace or a bracelet or something like that is actually a possible thing that you could do and use yourself or give to someone else. And you know, the fact that they're doing it in 10 hours, I mean, maybe call it 10 or 20 hours, but it makes it relatively achievable. I was kind of excited by that. And there were very, very different aesthetics shown by all of them. I mean, if we're going to run through them quickly, Lydia was the first one to be seen on TV talk about what she was doing, and it was absolutely amazing what she did. Absolutely beautiful. So she created this collar, which then had this sort of open, lacy piece of crochet, which came out, started to come out towards the shoulders and down the chest. It didn't work. She hadn't made enough material, so she ripped it back and then redid it. Absolutely the right thing to do, and then it fitted perfectly. I did wonder whether that was going to be one of those moments where, because she'd ripped it back, she wouldn't have time or something. Yeah. But it was a perfect thing.
It was super balanced. There was something about the composition of it where the density around the neck and the sort of almost a choker kind of, would you call it a choker? I don't know. The density around the neck. When it then opened out, there was a beautiful flow. More and more, as we talk through the different people, the overall feeling I had was that this is very much revealing design strengths for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to knitting strengths.
There's an interesting article by a lady I know, Save. She's a fantastic journalist, writes for The Independent, and is a knitter. Save talks about how the tasks are not just about finding a knitter or crocheter, but is also a heavy amount of design work. And actually, is it about design that wins you this rather than innate knitting or crocheting ability? And they're different things. Knitting is following an instruction, as we'll come on to, is the second challenge, actually. It's the first time I've actually seen them have to follow a specific instruction. But yeah, Lydia's design was flawless. It was absolutely stunning. One interesting thing, though, I mean, they talked about mosaic crochet was to give it structure around the collar. You don't use mosaic crochet for structure, you use it for colour work. It is a specific form of crochet colour work.
Because she used the mercerated cotton as well. Did she use mercerated cotton?
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. Yeah.
And the hook and bead method. I mean, this is all new for me. I mean, it was the first time we saw the steam blocking with her as well, which, I don't know. We did wonder last week how they were going to be tackling lace work without the opportunity to block things. And I did think, okay, there'll be steam blocking. The fact that they didn't necessarily explain to the general audience that steam blocking is not the default strictly, and that it is an option, and that it's a much shorter option. But yeah, I got a bit annoyed that, especially in the second challenge, they didn't give an explanation. If you're short on time, you can use a steamer, but in an ideal situation, you'd be soaking it and then pinning it. The fact that they didn't even mention that annoyed me a little bit.
It depends as well. There are some instances where you would use steam in preference to wet blocking, though. There are some times where steam blocking is better.
Is that for lace things specifically?
No, not for lace. I've used it in a project which has got these kind of dragon scales to it. It's a heavily 3D texturized knit.
Yeah, I can see that.
And because of that, what you actually need, you produce something that's heavily textured, and then what you need to do is you need to squash it together to get the texture to come up.
Okay, granted.
And so when the texture's up and when it's most pronounced, you need to block it in that shape. Okay. So you then use a heavy amount of steam, but you can't press it. So that's why you're throwing a lot of steam onto the object whilst it's compressed into this texturized state.
That makes sense.
Then you leave it to dry, and then it sets in the right place.
Got you.
So yeah, I mean, the time and place for steam blocking, but
just blocking as a concept, it could have been cool just to have like a sentence of explaining there are different types of blocking, because they were introducing blocking as a new concept probably for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I describe blocking as, when you wake up in the morning and your hair is all crumply or whatever from having slept on it. Yeah. When you wash it and you dry it, you can set it straight. That is what you're doing. You are blocking your hair, just like you block wool. That is the same process, the same chemistry that goes on to flatten out fibres or straighten fibres or crumple them up intentionally if you want, but that's what you're doing.
I mean, perhaps it was on my mind specifically because I am not wearing my promised vest that was promised last week and then again this week. It is finished. It has been blocking since Friday. We released the episode on Thursday. I woke up, did some work in the morning, and then at lunchtime finally blocked my gorgeous, gorgeous cuddle vest. It's called a cuddle vest. Like, that's the patent name. Gorgeous cuddle vest, blocked it. And it's been drying all weekend and it's still not dry. And I've given it like 2-3 goes in the hairdryer and it's still not, So I think because I'm
hairdryer it.
But I did a gentle waft. It was because I needed to evaporate the water from the foam underneath.
Oh, I see.
So the water was just basically collecting on it and not evaporating.
Do you have a fan?
Yeah.
I just stick a fan on it. That's what I do.
I mean, I was using a cool setting.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a relief.
No, don't worry. Don't panic. It's all right.
Take the pins out of the blocking and it just goes... just turns into one for a little doll.
This is a bit of a tangent, sorry, but I do want your perspective on this. Because I've been holding 3 strands together. One, so there's a mix of fibers, but I did swatch, so I know we're good. So sea slug, Arroyo, Malabrigo, which is like very speckled, splashed neon brights, lots of colours, kind of a pink general hue. And then I held that with another strand of brushed Surrey alpaca that was, I think there was a lot of extra dye in that kept coming off and it made the whole thing really chalky. So
chalky colour or chalky texture?
Chalky texture, like really bad. And then I also held another strand of Estonian like 2-ply wool with it. It was white to tone down the sea slug a little bit. So it was nice, right? That was the main body of it. It's taking so long to dry. And I was thinking, do you think that is the case because those 3 strands are sort of trapping moisture within the 3 yarns being kind of twisted together, those 3 fibers?
I mean, I would say if you're blocking something chunky at this time of year, you would also take like 3 or 4 days to dry easily.
Okay.
I stick a fan on it. I just get your regular summer fan and just point it at the object.
I've never knit chunky stuff before, so this is like weird for me. I didn't know if it was because I was holding multiple strands together or if it's just because it's chunky. So
it holds water for an awfully long time.
Okay. Well, we should move away from this being a knitting advice podcast because I think that's one of the things that people have enjoyed about this is that we're not that. But not to criticise anyone else who is because
shall I talk about Holger then?
Yes.
Holger made a necklace from a bin liner.
Yes.
I was excited by that. I could totally see where he was going with that.
I'm so glad that the strips of bin liner that he was knitting with as well looked really precisely cut.
Yeah.
Because I kind of had this vision of like really scraggy bits. It was so satisfying seeing these very...
Were they individual pieces? I thought he would have knitted like one long... I assumed I would have cut a spiral out of a bin bag.
It might have been a spiral.
Have ends.
It might have been a spiral, but it was just very exact. I enjoyed that. Well, of course, it's Holger. It would be exact. Okay, so... he used bin bags as the material, black bin liners, and he made this kind of neck piece inspired by Victorian mourning collars. He said, yeah, well, it's getting to the stage where, you should experiment and you kind of need to push the boat out because, you can just kind of coast through the first few weeks. And I thought, well, yeah, you can, Holger. You can coast through the first few weeks. The thing is, he said about the black bin liners, any fashion student will have made things out of black bin liners. And I can see that and I can imagine that. When he said the fashion student thing, I'm going to be honest, there's been an ongoing thought that I've had about Holger's involvement in this competition. That although this is about knitting, supposedly, and crochet, he is a tailor on Savile Row. And he was a fashion student, presumably. So he has a great deal of experience with textiles, with fashion, with clothes, with making things. Don't get me wrong here. I love Holger. It's great. It's great to have him on the show. But is this fair? Because he's the only person, of course, we see Lydia making gorgeous things. We see Elsa making gorgeous things, Isaac making amazing things. But he's got a professional level of experience in this.
I mean, yes, it is fair, and no, it's not fair, both in the same breath. It is completely fair on the basis that the show is trying to find Britain's best knitter. So Britain's best knitter is likely to be someone who is professional, takes it very seriously, and spends an awful lot of their time and has spent a lot of their life doing it.
Yeah.
So on that basis, completely fair. On the basis that it is a TV show where obviously we're pulling in random people from across society because we're trying to create a TV show that's entertainment, then no, it's not fair because he has a significant experience and technical advantage on everyone else.
That's it. Is that something you've thought about?
So on the Bake Off, you aren't allowed to apply if you're a professional baker.
Yeah.
So once you have your own bakery, you can't go on the Bake Off. I know within the community a year ago when applications were going in for a Game of Wool that everyone was surprised that professional knitters, so that means, people that own shops or designers, all the rest of it, they were allowed to apply because everyone sort of assumed that it would be an amateur-based competition rather than one that included professionals. Now, it may have been that because it's season 1, they wanted to cast the net wide and to see what happened with it, because season 1 is always an experiment for season 2. Well, although I'll come on to this because I don't think there's going to be a season 2. But absolutely, it's a challenging thing because there is a difference between someone like Holger, who has a very broad, very extensive range of experience, which I am so pleased to see because I love seeing it. It brings me true delight every week to see what Holger creates. But he is competing against people who are from a different experience set than him. Not all. I think Lydia and Elsa both have experience to hold their own against Holger.
That was the thing I was going to say, is that Lydia is the other person who's consistently up there, now 2 sheep badges as well, and she has a yarn business.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's the thing. You have these 2 people who are professionally involved in knitting, and I know Simon has a following, but it just, I think especially when he made that comment about, a lot of fashion students, if you're a fashion student, you will have made something out of a bin liner. It sort of settled with me in a different way that became more obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just to complete my thought on that, the reason I don't think that there is going to be season 2 is because we haven't seen any adverts yet to reapply for the Game of Wool.
Ooh, and that's a good check.
That was episode 6. We've got 2 episodes left. The best opportunity that show has to get people to apply is in a little, drop an advert at the end of the episode and say, are you interested in applying? This is how you do it. And there's been, on Bake Off, there is that every single week throughout the competition.
It didn't used to be that way with Bake Off, though. They used to just put it on, the last episode.
Well, it's getting late in the day is all I'm saying. There are 2 episodes left and we haven't seen that advert.
Maybe they know how to film it and they would push it till later in the year.
February.
Filming, they did it, what was it, spring?
Yeah, it was when the filming was done from February to April.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Maybe they know, because it's a big wait in between the 2. And there was also something about, because Sewing Bee as well moved its normal time. That was a weird thing. And I know that some friends who are really into Sewing Bee, I don't watch it because if I watched it, I'd have to start sewing. So I deliberately don't watch it.
So many hobbies, so little time.
Maybe they're postponing it a bit. I don't know.
Can we talk about Simon?
Yes.
Really, I'm heartbroken that Simon's gone. I mean, what a sweet guy. Honestly, what a lovely, lovely man. He did.
Crying?
I'm not crying, you're crying. I felt for Simon so much. What a lovely, lovely man he is. He's such a great guy, and I felt so sorry for him that he left the show. I know he had an amazing time. I know he wouldn't say that he was sad to leave because of the amazing experience and all the rest of it. But I just felt so moved. I know it was in the second part, but when he went to comfort Lydia and he, the assurance he gave Lydia, that was so special. And I really liked how he tried to do something radically different in that first part. To explain, Simon created something entirely out of wire, and he was knitting with wire as well as doing something called Viking knitting, which isn't
Viking
knitting
weaving,
or Viking weaving. It can be called Viking knitting. It isn't true knitting, but it is that's the name of the technique.
I looked it up afterwards. It sounds like you did as well. It's
do you know what, Georgia? I didn't look it up because I thought I can bet my life on the fact that Georgia will have done 4.5 hours of research on this, practiced it, and then come along to record
it. 4.5 hours.
It's 3.5.
To be honest, I didn't dive too far in because I was just thinking, oh gosh, that's the can of worms around the terminology, because from what I could see, some things were calling it Viking weaving, other things were calling it Viking knit. Well, I wasn't seeing an immediate consensus, and I was thinking, okay, this is an example where the language of knitting, actually the video I just released, one of the papers that is called Knit is a 4-letter word. I'm sure I've mentioned it on this podcast as well. And so knit and knitting comes up in so many different contexts, even within craft itself. It's very difficult to kind of iron out exactly what the meaning is. But effectively, yeah, he was doing this wire Viking weaving knitting thing. Yeah.
And what he created was, I mean, they said that's not a statement piece. Like,
it's a statement piece.
It was a huge metal object that you wear as a necklace. It's the same thing when they said about Isaac's wasn't a statement piece. Like, you're wearing a daisy the size of a dinner plate. How is that not a statement? I just don't know. Whatever. I just felt for Simon. It was very sweet what he created. So he made it, he talked about it, making it for his wife. He knitted something, created something out of wire. And on the front, it was the molecule oxytocin, and on the back, the fastening was a heart, which he knitted. Also, I mean, the reason I really felt for him is that I've tried a couple of times to knit with wire, and there is a lady, if you look up Malika Jewelry, she knits and crochets with wire. She does it with incredibly fine wire. It is very difficult to do. The problem with knitting with metal, have you done it, Georgia?
No.
But I don't want to mansplain.
No, because as discussed in previous episodes, I've been around wire a what. And so I want the explanation of what it's like as a knitter, but I'm excited. So I'm trying to explain in a very long-winded way that you're not mansplaining at all. But I do also have an awareness around wire because of my parents' work. So yes.
But the answer was no.
No, I haven't knitted with wire, but I've done loads of stuff with wire.
So the difficulty with wire when you knit with it, one of the many difficulties with wire, is that it doesn't flow backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
So once you're bending it all the time, whereas when you're knitting, you need a little bit of elasticity and slip forwards, backwards.
Yeah.
And wire doesn't do that. So you have to go down to really, really, really tiny, narrow gauge wire in order to be able to get that kind of quality that it can flow. Then, of course, what that leads to is breakage. And so it's very difficult to manipulate. It requires, if you go up too much in the gauge, it requires colossal amounts of force. As we know, Simon's got very strong hands. And as Holger unkindly said, your hands aren't designed for anything smaller than a sledgehammer. Simon's got a very good grip, I'll just say that. I mean, that was really, really challenging to be able to manipulate wire in that way. It was a beautiful thing that he tried to make, but it had a couple of ends pointing out and they didn't like that.
If I'm going to be harsh, the oxytocin thing, I did think, I've seen that before. That is a thing.
Did you?
Yeah. And this sounds so mean. It's mean on so many levels. I don't mean to be mean, but I was like, oh yeah, that's a bit Pinterest.
So rude.
I know, exactly, but I didn't mean it in a savage way. I just meant I think I've seen that on Pinterest, and that's the thing that people do with the oxytocin molecule. I feel like I've seen that, but maybe I've also seen it in jewelry cabinets for contemporary designers or at a craft fair. I'm just saying, I felt like I'd seen it before. It was a familiar concept to me, and I use Pinterest as well, guys. I'm not shading on Pinterest, but I was like, oh yeah, I think that's something that's done the rounds on Pinterest or something.
Whereas Holger's bin bag, you've I've never seen bin bags before.
I had seen bin bags before. That was my point earlier. It's not exactly original. It's original in this context because no one else is a fashion student. Anyway, but again, it's still the design thing of oh yeah, I'm going to do the oxytocin thing. I could see his seriousness. I mean, great. I think it's cool. It is cool. But then the heart at the back, it just sort of wasn't quite giving the edgy oxytocin vibe. And then also when he said about the roof around the edges, because he had all of these poking out wire bits.
Yeah.
And
it's like me, I'm rough around the edges. What a guy.
We talked before about the production company, if they'd done any of these whittled down productions before. And I can't remember what the consensus was, but they haven't really operated in this kind of sphere before.
I went through their back catalogue. I haven't seen any of their whittled down shows.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like we knew that Simon was going as soon as they went into a further deep dive. Simon is in the army, or was in the army, and he did all these tours and talked about his wife and showed pictures. And I was like, oh, we're getting this now because he's not going to be here next week.
Exactly. This is the last time that we've got to show you all the clips we've got of Simon. Yeah. So let's put them all into this show. Yeah. And then he's going to go at the end. I know. I 100% I was with you, Georgia. I knew he was going from that point on as well. It was horrible.
Dima said to me, oh yeah, it is a bit of a Simon tribute, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I wonder if they're kind of overdoing the foreshadowing in a way that it's like some kind of nature documentary where you meet the penguin and then later on the penguin like meets its untimely demise
from the leopard seal
or something.
Oh, what animals would they all be? What I mean
that's going to take too long. That's going to take too long to think.
Is it not quick?
No, because I take it really seriously.
Do you? Okay, all right.
Unless you want to.
No. I'm not going to distract you like that.
Okay, don't do it. I can't. It's too adorable. I take that way too seriously.
Okay. We talked briefly about Isaac, where I mentioned that he basically knitted a daisy chain and then a massive daisy. I thought it was really cute as well because a couple of the petals of the daisy were falling off.
I didn't know this.
Like when you're a child, that's the like she loves me not. You know,
or if you're Taylor Swift, there's a reference to that in one of her songs in the new album.
I'm sorry, I'm not a Swiftie.
Daisy's bare naked, I was distraught. He loves me not.
The only lyrics I've listened to on Taylor Swift were on the most recent album because I saw there was quite a lot of controversy about how not child appropriate they were.
It's on that song, actually.
For my young... Oh, okay. I was about to say, so I listened to all those lyrics to screen them for my daughter.
She does have a version, because she's got young nieces, or nieces to be. There is a clean version. And when I saw it in the cinema and they did that version.
Well, we missed that. So yeah, Isaac's was cute. I liked it. Elsa was all about the landscape of Scotland. It was this beautiful green. It looked like it was a series of larger I-cords or something like that were woven together. That's something I'd love to do. I've really thought a lot about doing cables, but sort of in real life, rather than them looking like they're weaving across the front of a piece of fabric, that they actually are proud of the fabric. And then she did that with I-cords, and I thought that was a beautiful thing to do.
I was looking at it thinking it wasn't necessarily just I-cords, but there was like some kind of small circumference element where they were getting thicker and bigger.
It may not have been I-cords. I'm going to have to go and have a look now.
It was interesting then, the critique of it, because it was really amazing, but it was a design critique.
Oh, we've got an image of it here.
Oh, okay.
So they look like they're about 6 stitches around the I-cord.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I think I would still call those an I-cord, probably. But, you know, someone will write in and correct us.
It did really feel like a design challenge in the sense that it was about aesthetic taste as well, to a certain extent. Sounds really shady of me to say, but as in what the judges were looking for.
It's the complexity of creating judging on a show like this, because the difficulty is that they are saying that they want to look for a piece of statement jewellery. How relevant is that to someone's competence as a knitter or crocheter? Yeah. And that's a difficult.
Exactly. The feedback that I also had was that, it would have been good to see some like moment of purple from the thistle carry up through the green, or some variation there, some expansion. And then on the cufflet, she kind of improvised. Was it improvised? I don't know. She added in a bit of extra wire.
I mean, the way they cut that, it suggested that she took the idea from, or was inspired by Simon, took that idea and put that on the cuff. Yeah. And then the judges said it would have been nice to see that on the necklace. I agree, it might have been nice.
Yeah. And I did also notice that Isaac, they said engineered again.
Yeah, I wrote that one down as well.
Yeah.
I thought of you. And then I was waiting for all of their feminized compliments.
Yeah, so that was that challenge. I mean, really the standout was absolutely Lydia. I mean, they were all statements in different ways, but Lydia's was just stunning.
Yeah. So the second task they had to complete was, and I've been waiting for this for weeks, was knitting in lace. And I was surprised that there were a couple of people on the show who hadn't knitted lace, but then, you know, if it's not your thing, why would you? So
Simon and Isaac had said they hadn't knitted lace at all. And then Lydia had quite a gap, she said, because of her kids and just it not being the focus. And yeah, I really related that, not because I have children yet, but because, you know, conversations we've had about focus and time available and the nature of the time and focus that you have available to knit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to take my necklace off at this point. I've had enough statementing. I mean, I love lace knitting because it, for me, captures an element of focus in my brain. Knitting can perform several different functions for me. Sometimes it is about just keeping my hands busy. That is stockinette whilst watching TV. Sometimes it is about all-engaging focus, and that's much closer to something like lacework or stacked stitches or brioche, where you might be doing increases and decreases rapidly, or brioche techniques. Like those are things where you need to be watching carefully what you're doing and thinking a bit more.
Fun colour work is becoming that for me, I think. I've just cast on a new pair of socks that I won't go into great detail about. Actually, my dad doesn't listen all the way through. It's fine. I'm knitting a pair of the Herding Hens stone knit socks with the chickens on there. Not super complex necessarily, but I just figured that I had the nice like palette cleansing chunky knit, and I've realized actually I do need a bit more to occupy my brain than just stockinette. And I'm going to do that by embracing lovely little colourwork socks.
And Charlotte's socks are just so amazing. They're so cool. Sorry, Stone Knits is the account you're looking for. If you're looking for colourwork sock inspiration, have a look on Stone Knits on Instagram. Or, oh no, she didn't partake in our tassels.
Oh, was she?
She was at Munich. Oh, sorry, didn't I mention that I was having drinks with Charlotte last weekend?
Oh my gosh, what? I didn't know that. The thing I wanted to get your perspective on, I'm mainly just baiting you, I think, is that I already have her book, Charming Colourwork Socks, which has the chicken chart in it, but it has an egg bottom. And what I wanted to do was do the ones where it's the repeating chicken all down the sock. So in theory, I could have just taken the chart and then like repeated it again at a difference, so it's like offset.
Yeah.
In theory, I could have done that. But I was so stressed at the weekend after all of the nightmare of podcast editing that I was like, I just don't want to do it. And then it go wrong. And Dima just said to me, just buy the pattern, Georgia. Just buy the pattern. And so I bought the Herding Hens sock set. I also got the ducky
Good
chart.
for you.
And when I was doing it, I thought Adam would be thinking, why did you just buy another pattern when you literally probably already have the chart? You just need to duplicate it and move it along. And I thought, you know what? I'm paying to not have the stress right now.
Yeah. Too bloody right. Completely agree.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, I just thought I'm not remaking this chart and printing it out for myself. Like, it's not worth the time. I'm just going to buy the chart and support Stone Knits and it's going to be fine. So yeah. And now I'm having a great time and they're lovely.
Are you also going to buy the see-through welly boots or gum boots if you're in the States? I
can't get them in my size. If anyone knows where you can get them in like large UK 10.5, 11, for me, not for my father, for me, then please let me know. Okay, right, sorry.
So task two, they were all going to... So the team challenge was absolutely nothing to do with being on a team whatsoever. So what they had to do was construct a lampshade or a light shade. There were 5 sides to the light shade, and each of them had to knit an identical panel of lacework to go around the light. So there were 5 sides to it. And they were given a chart, which was 66 stitches across, 80 rows tall. That was the lacework. They all had to complete it. They had to knit with linen. And I have a lot of thoughts about that.
Forgot about that.
That's why I've got linen yarns all over this table.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up.
So also, because I talked to Di and Sheila about knitting with linen when I went to Edinburgh earlier this year.
Getting the goss here. Let me sip my tea.
So, and when I talked to Di and Sheila about knitting...
Sorry, I tried to do that bit, but the tea bag string was in my mouth. When you go and people go... the housewives thing where they sip. So I'm sorry. I let you talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm trying to have a rant and you keep interrupting me.
I'm very...
So I met Di and Sheila at the Woollygood Gathering in Edinburgh earlier this year. I came across linen yarn, 100% linen yarn for the first time there, and I was really exploring what to create with it. And I'm sorry if you are just listening to this rather than watching it, but I'm just displaying now a hat that I knitted in pure linen. Yeah. This is a watermelon.
Yes, we had this conversation at the time,
and it's knitted in pure linen, and I was amazed at how hard linen is to knit with. But it's a beautiful effect once it's done. And this also includes, conveniently, some lacework on it. It's got a row of holes around it, which are intentional and lacy. When I talked to Di and Sheila about it, Sheila in particular, she had something on display or a picture of a linen garment she'd knitted, and she showed me how difficult it was to get consistency in linen and how hard it is to create something in linen in stockinette because it just shows up everything. The tension is just very, very challenging in linen. And so as soon as they said it's lacework in linen, my brain went to that conversation. I was like, have you intentionally tried to make this as challenging as possible? Because I didn't see any other reason for them to to make it that hard? Like, why do you need it to be linen unless it had something to do with the blocking process, that linen steam blocks really well, because if you can screw up wool blocking with steam because it can get hot enough that you actually felt it.
And cotton might just be too slippy.
I mean, I don't know. I'm fascinated by that, but yeah, knitting with linen is hard work, but I'm not sure it can even have been pure linen, because my fingers wouldn't take 10 hours of knitting linen. It would cut through my fingers.
They've all got calluses at this point.
I mean, I've got fairly tough fingers by this point from knitting.
My understanding of it is it's really harsh on your hands.
It's very harsh on your hands. You need to be wearing a plaster or some protection over your finger. It's worth it if you want to create something with pure linen, but it is physically arduous.
That makes all of it feel worse. I'm glad that you reminded me about the linen element, because already I was frustrated by this challenge. I think it was a good challenge.
I think it was a brilliant challenge.
Like having everyone do this. This is exactly the kind of technical challenge that I wanted. Like everyone doing the same kind of thing, seeing the different results, seeing where you could get it wrong. Like, this is what I wanted.
Absolutely.
But
sorry, I am interrupting you, but so much of knitting is about following a pattern or following a chart or following a set of instructions. And can you replicate something perfectly?
Yeah.
That is what a huge amount of the craft is about. About saying, I've got a set of instructions, and once you've got that set of instructions, for the rest of time, anyone should be able to recreate that object.
Yeah. So totally agree. And we saw that in the fact that Isaac was one of those people who hadn't done lace before, and he smashed it.
Yeah, because he presumably has read charts before, and he understands what a chart is, and therefore, like, you just get your brain in gear and just follow the instructions and do it. I was super pleased for Isaac there. I
love that he said that he thrives on clear instructions.
Yeah.
And we are not here to comment on anyone's brain, or I'm not here to place diagnosis or judgment on anyone, but that was something that I really related to as a neurodivergent person, that actually I really do benefit from very clear instructions. And when I have clear instructions, I can thrive, and maybe when I was looking at the statement jewelry thing, he said that he was really kind of struggling to relate to that or understand what it was that they wanted, because maybe he wasn't really familiar with the concept of statement jewelry and what they were aiming for. So he kind of felt like a bit in limbo. But as soon as they gave him like a set of strict instructions, they gave him the chart, he steamed through it. Nice. I didn't mean to do that.
I didn't block you either.
So that was great. And he was the winner. Very few mistakes. And then, so we had Ailsa was rushing at the end. She was running out of time. And so they said in the judging that the top panel that was hers, you could see it was all kind of mistakes and stuff.
What I loved about the judging, for once, what I truly loved about it is that when they talked through what they could see in each of the panels, they were talking through the personalities and the experience over the previous 10 hours. You can see it. The fact that you can see someone's attitudes and personality and feelings come through in what they've created was such a beautiful thing. Even if it was distress that this was the thing that came through, they could see when Lydia got upset. They could see when Elsa was rushed. They could see when Simon was stressed. All of that. The fact that you can see that living in the material as there, it's there as that memory. That was a joyous moment for me.
Have you seen the clip of Millie Bobby Brown, the actress, talking about her knitting?
Possibly.
It's only a short thing, but it's done the rounds. She's knitting this sort of, it looks a bit like a scarf, but it's just, it's a bit of a piece of fabric. I'm not sure where she is on her knitting journey now. It's quite an old clip, but she's in some kind of press thing and she's showing them the knitting and she's like, yeah, so this is where I was really stressed. This is where I was on the press tour. My understanding from that video, not to be discouraging or diminishing, is that she's fairly new to knitting, or she's fairly inexperienced, doesn't get to knit that much. And so there was such variation in her tension and stresses, and you can really visually see the changes. Yeah, what you're saying is also reflected in that video.
So each of these knitters had to create that. They made a big thing about it being 5,000 stitches in total. The knitters had to average Six?
It was 66 stitches per row.
Yes, but they had to average 8.8 stitches a minute.
Oh, right. Sorry.
That was the end of the sentence, Georgia.
Okay, we've not quite reached telepathic telepathic stages yet. Apologies.
That's all right. So it's interesting as well. 9 stitches a minute sounds quite slow probably to most knitters when you're thinking about knitting stockinette. I can knit at 40 to 45 stitches a minute. I know super fast knitters are 60 to 80. Most people who are experienced knitters are probably in that 30 to 40 range. But when you do things like cables or lace work, it slows down so much, so much.
Check, yeah.
And it's not a big panel. I must confess, last night after the show, what I was trying to do was find that pattern because I was going to knit it for you and have it ready for today. I couldn't do it. I was going to try and do half of it because it was in 2 halves, and I reckoned.
I wouldn't mind giving it a go. Maybe not in linen.
I'd love to do it, but I couldn't find it. Yeah. Well, no, I wanted to do it in linen because I wanted to experience it. Because that's the other thing I want to talk about was the issue that they all had. So they made a big thing this week about them getting to choose their needles, whether they had circular needles or whether they had straight needles. And for those that don't know, a circular needle is where you've got a needle which then tapers down to a thin cord and then attaches to another needle. So it goes round and round or back and forth.
So you could knit things in the round.
And a straight needle is what you are traditionally thinking of as a knitting needle. So there's a problem in lacework and associated stitches where when you create a loop around a knitting needle and you create multiple loops within the same stitch, when that cluster of wrapped stitches comes off the needle, when it's time for it to go back onto the needle, because it comes off a needle which is a thick radius, goes down to a thin wire, and then goes back onto the thick, the way those stitches are wrapped, sometimes they can get twisted over each other, and that forms a knot. This is why I brought out my linen sample, because when I knitted yarn overs and knit 2 togethers, I looked at their pattern. It had yarn overs, knit 2 togethers, slip knits, and knit 3 togethers. Those are the combination of stitches. When I did it in linen, I didn't have that problem, which again makes me think that there was something about that fibre choice that was tricky for them, or because they were knitting on very large needles that they had the problem. And the problem you have is when it comes back onto the needle, it knots, and the harder you push it, the tighter the knot forms. The only way out of it is to pull the needle back out of the stitch and to untwist that stitch, and it is a painstaking and slow process.
So I do know what you're talking about with that. I have experienced it. I wasn't actually really thinking of that. I was thinking of the tension that can sometimes happen with lace where you increase, you decrease, you pull stitches together, where then the forces are all kind of concentrated from, say, knit 5 together or whatever onto one stitch. Then when you're pulling them from the cable to the needle, that pressure, that downward force just gets really stuck. Well, it just sort of happens a lot, but especially if the needles don't have a very nice join.
Yeah.
And that was what I was primarily thinking. And the frustration that Lydia had, the big drama. And this is not to say that Lydia was dramatic. I think she's absolutely feeling her feelings justifiably with various bits of information that we had. But the big moment of the episode was Lydia being really, really frustrated and overwhelmed with feelings about it. I felt her pain. I felt her difficulty because for me, looking at those needles, I think they were maybe like Knit Pros or something, Knitter's Pride.
I couldn't identify them.
They didn't look like especially good needles to me.
Do you think that they were product placements and then actually, because it all went wrong for them in the episode, that's why we've not seen any adverts afterwards, because they're like, actually, we don't want to own that.
If they're the needles, I think they are. I remember knitting with a pair of those. And I feel bad naming and shaming, and no one's going to come for me. I think they were like the Knit Pro circulars that have like a black cord in between. The join on that is appalling. I knitted with them once for maybe an hour and I stopped. I can't remember if it was when Lydia was stood in the haberdashery or before, but there was some kind of like eye-rolly frustration moment where they tried to edit it to make it out that it was just about circular needles. And actually the frustration was, you've given me these appalling needles that don't work. I
absolutely will say, if you were knitting with Chiaogu lace circulars, you wouldn't have that problem.
Yes.
Because so those are a fixed circular, although there are interchangeables as well, but the tapering on the back of the shape of those needles, plus the extended points, they are made for knitting with lace.
Exactly.
And I agree. It was probably down to the needles. I've had that problem where they catch and snag, most significantly on Leica needles. Mm-hmm. The cable join there, I really don't like knitting with those full stop.
Yeah.
But absolutely there are tools to be able to do a job.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned colourwork socks earlier, my love of colourwork socks really came when I started using the Aldi Wunder socks. Wunder sock, small circumference needles, because they've got a lovely join on them, at least relative to the small circumference ones I used before when I tried the Knit Pro ones. They were... It was just I wasn't enjoying it. They would get caught all the time. When you've got that irritating like catch every single time, it's not fun.
Well, also then when you're dealing with a material like linen, which can snag and really has no elasticity in it, to like the fibre can then just slip. It's brutal, absolutely brutal.
And then we find out when Lydia's kind of they're filming her while she's probably like trying to have a minute, and she says it's Mother's Day and I'm not with my kids. I wondered what your feelings are on this as a parent, but certainly as a knitter's show is generally maternal craft, like people learn from their grandmothers, their mothers, it's passed down in families. That's a big part of knitting culture and history. I just felt like, how have they organised a knitting competition on Mother's Day when you have a mother who is one of your contestants, and probably through the show before, they would have planned the dates before they knew who was going to be there. And I would say the same thing for Father's Day. Father's Day, I'm very close to my dad. That's very important. But especially in a craft that has such a strong relationship and history with women, how did that happen?
I've got a number of thoughts on that, because my first thought was, what on earth are they talking about? Because I know that the filming schedule was Tuesdays to Thursdays. So maybe there was a deviation from that, but I had it on good authority that the filming schedule was Tuesdays to Thursdays. So the first thought that came through my mind was they've had to accommodate something else in the filming schedule. And then obviously I was the same as you. That is brutal to put it across Mother's Day. The second thought I had is, well, actually, because of when they were filming it, I wonder actually whether she just had to be traveling away from home, and whether she meant that she had been away for Mother's Day as part of this filming schedule. But I want to follow up. I mean, we're going to have contestants interviewed on here, I hope, at some point, and then we can find out about all this stuff. I will say, to me, that felt like a younger parent experience. My children are older. They are, they are middle-aged children at this point, and I haven't got to...
Middle-aged in terms of the child region.
Yeah, my
children. Not middle-aged as in middle-aged.
I don't give specific ages for my children, but they're significantly older than 5, and none of them have hit 15 yet.
Yes, okay.
So they're middle-aged children. I'm trying to build the phrase middle-aged child because I think it makes me feel better about being a middle-aged man. Anyway, with my children, absolutely, when they're young, Mother's and Father's Days are wonderful things, but my children haven't got to enjoy a Mother's or Father's Day as that for several years, because of the number of activities that they do at the weekends, which completely eat into that. And every year that comes round, it's just a recurring joke about the fact that Mother's and Father's Days don't exist for whatever else they're doing. And I know that it's a luxury that they're able to participate in so many different things.
I did a lot of Scouts things when I was a child, and there's all different kinds of ways that kids can be doing things, and also parents as well can be working. Like, my mum was a nurse. She was a doula for a good couple of years, but then she went back to nursing.
The difficult thing, as far as Lydia is concerned, is that 100% I feel awful for her that she wanted to be with her children on Mother's Day and that wasn't able to, and that is horrible. And I think the difficulty is that when you're knitting under pressure like that, everything just starts to build up and get on top of you.
So, of course, we saw then Simon jumping in to help Lydia, and whilst she'd kind of taken a step back, he counted her stitches for her, and she wasn't on the golden 66 stitches, she was on 65. And so they just said, just whack another yarn over in. But the funny interaction there that was sort of amongst the contestants, Simon said to Lydia, who he'd been in a team with the previous week over the cardigan mismatch malarkey, if Holger can sew 2 halves of a cardigan together the wrong way round and still come first, you can chuck a yarn over in and you'll probably come first. There was a way they were trying to edit that so that it wasn't at the show's expense, but the vibe that I was getting from the contestants in that moment was just like, it's a bit of a free-for-all, so, just whack in another yarn over, because somehow if they can come first with that, then I'm sure you can come first with a bloody yarn over.
It was a lovely bit of contempt for the show itself.
Also, I'm just thinking now, the 2 different needles. You had the wooden needles, long, straight needles. They were wooden. The circular ones were metal. Different textures.
Yeah.
I like knitting with wooden needles because I find my stitches like slip off too easily. But I really like knitting with circulars. I don't like knitting with straight needles. I don't like the tension and pressure that it holds. Also with the linen and lace, if you knit with straight needles, you're not used to it. Like your arms and your forearms, it would be horrible in your hands. It would make it way worse because you're holding all the weight of
particularly I felt in that section, there were images of them sort of leaning over on the sofas in really uncomfortable ways. There's a lot of chat online about how uncomfortable those sofas would be to sit on and knit in for 10 hours straight. And I think you really saw that as well. As we're having to show more footage from them actually completing it, it looked brutal.
Didn't feel good. So we had Ailsa rushing at the end. We talked about that. Ailsa rushing at the end. We had Isaac did really, really well. Holger, I mean, he went for the straight needles rather than the circular needles. To be honest, everyone else's was more stand out to me, so I almost can't remember how Holger's went. The thing with Simon was that he didn't then finish it. The way that they framed it was because he'd helped Lydia. He then didn't have enough time to finish it. But he'd also not knitted lace before. There were sort of mistakes all the way through. And although they kind of framed it as him being this sort of gallant man, not quite like that, in a nice way. Like they framed it as, he's fallen behind.
How is gallant not being nice?
No, but as in, I wasn't trying to say that sarcastically.
Okay.
That it was so nice that he came to Lydia's aid and it was all, rescue mission. Like, I don't mean that.
In his Viking armor.
Yeah, in his Viking armor and there's been a military theme throughout. He had the little knight costume as well for the kids.
That's true.
So the mace.
Yeah.
He came to the fair maiden's aid and counted her stitches for her.
Sir Simon, that's what we need to call him.
I mean,
Sir Simon of Pinterest.
Sir Simon of Pinterestia. Sir Simon of Pinterestia came to Lydia's aid. And I wonder if actually counting a row of stitches, that's not a massive amount of time.
No, compared to, at one point he said he had to rip back 10 rows.
Yeah, exactly. There's probably more to do with it than, he's out because he helped Lydia.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a sacrifice he made because he's such a nice person. It's just the weird editing framing of the show that they just chose to talk about that rather than the 10 rows that he had to rip back. But there we go. Yeah, there was no explanation of the steam blocking versus the wet blocking. And it also, whilst you say some things benefit more from steam blocking, absolutely true, willing to concede that. The fact that we didn't get any kind of explanation or discussion about that, but maybe they didn't want to go into it because they would then have to explain why none of the pieces have been blocked the entire series.
Yeah. Well, can you imagine trying to block those chunky knits? I mean, you're experiencing it right now.
Yeah, exactly.
You block a chunky knit, it takes a week to dry.
I wish that we had more of these like technical-esque challenges where they all had to do the same thing and then they would compare.
And then you can see the difference.
Yeah. It has given me a new level of appreciation for the technical challenge in Bake Off.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, although the thing in Bake Off has always been that it also depends on someone's experience as to whether they've seen that particular kind of cake before. Like, make a Genoese sponge. Okay, maybe that's too simple and maybe everyone knows how to do that. I don't know. It leans a lot on experience. But in knitting, so much of knitting, I guess maybe a little bit like baking, but so much of it is about following a recipe and a set of instructions. I absolutely loved that lace competition. That's something I've been talking about for a long time, that I've wanted to see them making lace in it, because you see a lot. You see so much, and it's literally transparent. Mm-hmm. You hold it up to the light and you literally see. And there's a beautiful example as well. Di, one of the judges, Di Gilpin, put up her version of the same pattern, that there's something like 5 pineapples across, that she'd exhibited and shown to the Prince's Trust. She put that up on Instagram, and that was interesting as well, because again, you can see the mistakes in it, and Lacework shows that. It really does show that personality. It's just there is nowhere to hide with it in the way that visually so many other knitting techniques do hide and conceal small errors, or there are ways and techniques to hide mistakes, because knitters know you always make mistakes. Yeah,
I just, the needles thing really irked me. I think because I'm a person who has to knit with particular needles. So I knit with square ones because I had a wrist injury. And I had a surgery on my hand, and I discovered Cubics needles, and it really, really changed the knitting experience for me. And a friend of ours, we were knitting over here a couple of weeks ago, and I had a spare needle and said, do you want to try these? And so she tried them, and she didn't think of herself as having any particular hand problems, but having that square distribution of the pressure, she said, oh my gosh, my tension, this is amazing. And people often say I've got really good tension, but I hadn't realized that I have a really good relationship with my needles and my tools. And I thought gosh, if I were on this show, not that I would want to be honest at this point, but if I were on this show, I would expect they would make an accommodation for me needing to knit with my own needles because I have a medical thing. But like, what if they said, no, sorry, you need to knit with the show's provided needles? And I thought it would just be a nightmare.
Well, you should apply, Georgia, and just to go through the process for purposes of journalistic intrigue, for nothing else.
Cut this section, say that they don't know, because nothing else we've said would imply that I actually am just doing it for the goss.
No, definitely not.
Simon, of course, went home. We should say that.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
It was so sad.
Yeah.
Poor Simon. You could see that they all loved Simon as well. There was a lot of love in that room for Simon.
I like that on Instagram. I'm seeing, pictures of them running into each other. And I know Meadow and Lydia are good friends. I think they do videos together and things like that. So it's nice to see a continuation. And of course, you have been acquainted with Sir Simon of Pinterestia.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to see Simon again because he's obviously, he's had to be very quiet and they're very careful. I think they all have quite curated experiences on online.
Yeah, and also when you're in these kind of things, you build up a personal rapport and a relationship with the people who are editing or producing the show as well. So I can understand that even if people had negative experiences, they're not necessarily going to come out and badmouth everyone. They're also human beings.
Yeah, and there's Stockholm syndrome.
Anyway.
The other thing that's happened over the weekend, which I stressed you out with, there's this concept of geek sniping, which I came across by a fantastic cartoonist. I don't know if it was his originally, but geek sniping, the cartoonist is called Randall Munro. He's a fantastic science explainer.
Okay.
Basically, geek sniping is where you send someone a maths puzzle or something like that, and they become so embroiled in it that they have to dedicate all of their time to it until they've finished it.
It's like my husband.
I have found the geek sniping version of that with Georgia, which is basically to send Georgia something which potentially has academic or heavily social liberal implications. And all of a sudden, poor Georgia is completely...
I was in Aldi. I was at the checkout in Aldi and I was in a happy mood. And then I looked at my phone and I went, oh God, Adam wants to talk about. And suddenly my whole demeanor and all this stress from the editing. And I was mainly thinking about, I've got to edit this into coherence. Not that you're not coherent, but as in I was like, ah.
So just to be clear, I wasn't texting just Georgia. We have a place where we share notes for what we want to talk about.
Exactly. This
podcast.
is not on Adam. But,
so I'll actually say what it is. Spill the beans. So Pantone released their colour of the year. Mm-hmm. And the long and the short of it is that Pantone's colour of the year is basically white.
Yes.
And there are reasons why that is a fairly controversial thing to do. I mean, Pantone is a...
Colour Institute.
Yeah, Colour Institute, as you say. It is a wonderful documentation of colour. It's a nice way of doing it and all the...
And a company, they have a lot of brand collaborations. There's an amazing musician composer who I really love, Laura Mvula, and one of her albums, they released a Pantone shade with her. And I remember that as being like one of the album collaborations.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's a cool thing to do. Whether you know the reasons behind it and how important colour standardisation is, possibly not. But Pantone is like a commonplace word and term and way of describing colours. You go back through the last 20 years of their colour of the year.
26 years, I believe.
There's definitely been no hint of white. And lots of people online saying, well, pastel shades are out. White is definitely not a thing. And obviously it is politically controversial to be talking about white as a favourite colour for the year.
So they're saying that it's based on their forecasting trends, colour trends for the year. Yeah, no, the reason I didn't want to have this Pantone conversation, when I read it, I thought, we are two white people talking about this. And I want to take it really seriously. And I want to make sure that we're aware of the privilege that we're going into this, that, we can hold a distance from that. But if you are someone who is not white and you have an interaction and you see that, it could be really upsetting. Having had the conversation before and all of the sentiment that you've delivered in this conversation, I know that's your feeling. But I was like, this is something I need to really take care with.
I totally agree with the argument that it's an appalling colour to choose. I totally disagree that they should have done it in any way whatsoever. I just wanted to add my commentary to it, which is that I think it is totally corporate PR level.
Yeah.
it is just rage baiting everyone.
But yeah, I was wondering from your business perspective and experience with companies, like they're very secretive about how they come up with these colors of the year and how they do these forecast projections. But I just can't imagine that they wouldn't have envisaged that this was some kind of controversy that could have happened, especially in America and the current context there. My brother is an American citizen. I've had a friend who just came back from a fellowship for their PhD in Washington at the Smithsonian. It's a very different climate. In the UK, we've got a lot of controversy around the Union flag at the moment. You know, I had a weird experience kind of around all of this. My mum popped in to visit me last week and she brought all of my old Scout stuff. So I was really, really, really involved in Scouts. I went to 2 World Scout Jamborees. So one in Sweden. It's like the largest Scout camp in the world. One in Japan. And I have a big badge blanket, hundreds of patches that I need to finish sewing onto this blanket. My mum brought all these things over and I feel a bit emotional. I found a Union flag from my trip to Japan because, you know, you go and there's like 150 countries represented there. You've got your UK uniform and you've got special neckerchiefs and badges and you trade with people from all over the world. And I had a beautiful flag that was all the people that I went to the Jamboree with, one of them being my tent buddy, who's still a really, really close friend, who's a crocheter and is really enjoying the podcast. My instinct when I found this flag, because we're in a completely different time, was, oh God. And then I open it out and I see all these wonderful messages from friends from all over the world written on this Union flag. It was a very interesting clash of like, oh, I don't want to put this up in my house, or I don't know what to do with it. When I saw this Pantone thing, I was like, white supremacy and the rise of that and racism, that's a very real threat for people. Interestingly,
so it's very difficult online to actually get back to their announcement of it because now it is obliterated by the very harsh commentary online talking about how dare you say that white is the color of the
next year, yeah.
When, they call it cloud something, don't they?
It's Cloud Dancer.
They call it Cloud Dancer. That's right, Cloud Dancer. But basically, it's white, and everyone knows it's white, and that's what they're calling it. But if you go back to the original launch of it, then there's this kind of tongue-in-cheek video that the president of Pantone does, talking about the controversy of it being white, but what she describes is that the controversy is that white is a color too. She doesn't address the main controversy about why white might be.
Well, there was the thing carry on.
I just think it's corporate rage bait. That's where I'm going with it. I think all of the conversation, and in a way, I feel bad to participate in it because bringing it into the podcast means we're talking about Pantone, and I think that's what they intended. And I feel trapped by that corporate rage bait. But there's so much of it in the fibre community. So many people are talking about it because colour's such an important thing to many of us that I just feel like I couldn't ignore it as a piece of current news. But my take on it is that it is rage bait. If you find that original video of the president of Pantone, I think you might draw a similar conclusion. But
we can
not.
Link it on our notes on our website because my wonderful husband, his delegated task involvement in the podcast is that he is doing the transcripts because I'm dyslexic. And so he's doing the transcripts and the referencing. We did have a little bit of a backlog of those. What we're doing, because you can't really do references very well, like italics or, links very well in the actual notes when you post it to all these different platforms. Everything is on our website. And so we can link this video, and I'd certainly like to watch it.
To answer your question about, from my corporate experience, what do I think about it? Well, I've known the head of marketing, as in the marketing director for, as an example, Pizza Express, who ran the campaign to say that they were rebranding as Pasta Express. I don't know if you remember that, but that goes back 15, 20 years, or 15 years, I think.
I was 7, and we didn't eat at Pizza Express, I'm afraid.
Fine. So, I don't know how global Pizza Express is, but it's a.
Actually, I did see a Pizza Express in China that wasn't actually a Pizza Express, but had a different name.
So there we go. So
they are
maybe
around.
Maybe our listeners will know. But in the UK, there was a big campaign, say 15 years ago, that they were going to change their names to Pasta Express rather than being Pizza Express. They put out the press releases. They did everything to say that they were doing it, but it was pure rage bait for journalists. So journalists picked it up. They ran national stories in all of the papers. That was a pure PR stunt. They had absolutely no intention of rebranding to Pasta Express. But all it was is PR about creating conversation.
Yeah.
And so much of PR is just about, can you get your brand talked about by other people? That's what you want. And it's just about trying to get column inches. And I strongly think that Pantone have just taken a big risk and thought, do you know what? We're going to be a bit cheeky. Let's talk about this being a colour which is all about calm and peace and all the rest of it. Those are the values they're imbuing into it. And of course, they are just glossing over the fact that it is a deeply political statement that they are potentially making.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we're having these conversations around colour, not saying I agree with it, but, you know, it invigorates the conversation around how colour is very important. And colour is very important at the moment.
Well, I mean, I will say, I think it would have a different tone if when the president of Pantone was announcing it, if it was a white man standing up there, then I think it would look very different. That's why I think you need to watch the original video of her talking about it, because I think when I'm reading into her that same kind of tongue-in-cheek corporate PR message that I think they are just trying to rage bait everyone.
There's all kinds of different angles and ways you could look at it. And as someone who's very much been interested in the sort of the minimalist world, there are all kinds of debates about whether or not minimalism is something that is actually quite inaccessible for a lot of people. And it
was fascinating for me, sorry to name drop, but when I was listening to Kay Fassett last weekend.
You're at Munich Knits?
When I was at Munich Knits. Sorry, have I mentioned that before, Georgia? But he was talking about his obsession with white. For a long period, in his early artistic period, he was all about white and painting whites and using whites, and that he was obsessed with it. And that then he sort of found colour, or found the other colours, because white is, of course, a colour. But that then his journey sort of exploded in terms of how he went. But he also goes through these phases. You know, he's been through more pastel-y phases and bolder phases. You know, like everyone has these periods. At the moment, I'm knitting mainly with darker colours. I feel darker. I want to embrace darker colours, and I'm enjoying leaning into that. For me, my colours of the moment are really dark, because that's visually where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm kind of almost the same situation, but the reverse is that then I'm very attracted at the moment to bright, fun, pastel-y candy colours, maybe because I'm trying to aspire to that.
I think it's absolutely fine on a personal level to have these colour taste preferences.
But when you're a big company like that, they know exactly what they're doing.
A big company like that, they knew what they were doing. It's corporate rage bait. It's gutting. It's disappointing. I don't really want to participate in it.
You know, there is an alternative colour of the year that we could, if you're like, nah, Pantone, I will no longer look to you as the source of my colour of the year in Intel. This is the most sort of middle class Nigella thing.
Are you about to talk about your microwabe?
No, almost. But I would like to stress that I do not have one of these yet. But KitchenAid stand mixers release a colour of the year every year.
Oh, do they?
Yes, they do. I'm not sure how many years they've been doing it, but alongside their standard range, they do release a colour of the year. And I do wait with great anticipation
to buy your latest KitchenAid stand mixer.
To consider because I've not been 100% sold on any of the permanent range. I also don't have the kitchen counter real estate, both in the sense I don't own a house, but one day I would love to have a KitchenAid stand mixer, and they stopped making them as well as they used to. You can buy an extra part that you put in the mechanism that will strengthen and lengthen the life of it. That's a whole other thing about the quality of goods in the long term. I know that there's a Swedish one that I could get. I know. But I like the KitchenAid one. I bought into the vision. They have been releasing these specialist colours for the last couple of years, and they are nice. There was one time where I very much almost like trigger bought a KitchenAid, and Dima thankfully talked me down and was like, we got to pay rent. Like this, like it was not the right time. It was very much an impulse thought, and I didn't in the end. But they did a really gorgeous, vibrant fuchsia pink a couple of years ago. That was very much the thinking of my ring, and the yellow and the pink. My family called me Gigi, and so yeah, it was a Gigi pink. They also had an orange. They had a shimmery, like pale blue. I think they had an aubergine, or maybe that's just part of the permanent range. There was definitely an orange at some point, but it was more like a honey. But I wanted it to be more orange than it was. And then the last year was butter yellow, which, as we know,
you should have got matching ones. You should have got Dima the yellow one, and you could have had the pink one. But
then also, you've got to consider the Dulet toaster. that you'd need to colour match it with that one.
Why wouldn't you have the KitchenAid toaster to match? Out of interest?
Because Julep ones are completely replaceable and you can take all the parts apart and order new parts. From an engineer perspective, you might be quite interested in the manufacturing of the Julep toaster.
That sounds like a second podcast on the side for us. The fact that even if it isn't a dog whistle, it looks like one, and it's just appalling to even flirt with that, I think, in today's environment.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Georgia, I want to wrap up on something a little bit nicer than talking about
KitchenAids. That's why I tried to lift the mood.
Oh, you were
KitchenAid
right with
mixers.
KitchenAids. Oh, I messed it up. I'm sorry. Do you know what we're going to look at next week on the Game of Wool?
I've forgotten again.
We are going to be talking about, does that say chunky knits? It can't say chunky knits. Charity knits. They're doing, I think they're doing something from, you've got something out of a charity shop and you've got to make they said catwalk dress out of it. And then the other challenge is they called rags to bags. So that's going to be interesting.
There was a controversy around Sewing Bee, and there's a video I will link to about this, where they had to make something out of crochet blankets that they got from charity shops, and they were cutting them up. There's a great video on YouTube that I will link in the website reference to the show notes situation that goes into it in much greater detail than I will do justice now. But yeah, I wonder if we're going to see a bit of a situation of controversy there, because there was some kind of jumper with the sleeves chopped off it.
It's going to be very interesting. Anyway, that's for next week.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Yarn Library podcast with me, Adam Cleveley.
And me, Georgia Denham, a tulipal.
Nailed it, Georgia. Well done.
Thank you very much. It's my podcast voice. It's like this. Yeah. Ta-da!
Ta-da, the end.
You've been listening to Yarn Library podcast with Adam Cleveley at Cleveley Knits and me, Georgia Denham at Tulipal. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, share and subscribe. And if you didn't,